The email didn't even have her name in it. Just a sterile line, center-aligned in the middle of an otherwise empty screen. Your services are no longer required. No signature, no explanation. Like her 15 years of blood, code, and carpal tunnel could be swept off the books with a flick of some asshole's MBA-wielding pinky. That was 4 weeks ago. Now she was eating dry Cheerios out of a chipped coffee mug at 2 p.m., still in sweatpants that smelled like deadline panic and unwashed grief. Her laptop, a battered ThinkPad with 3 missing keys and 1 stuck in permanent caps lock, was open to a job board. Again, the listings were all identical, looking for a rockstar developer to join our fast-paced team. Translation: we want a 25-year-old with 10 years of experience who will accept stock options instead of a livable salary and still thank us with a Slack emoji. She clicked into yet another job post that required Kubernetes experience and the soul of a golden retriever, then shut the whole thing with a hollow thunk. Her phone buzzed, probably another recruiter trying to circle back. She didn't check. Then came the headline, glowing like radioactive sludge in the sidebar of a news site she only visited to doomscroll. $500M tech merger called off amid due diligence crisis. She blinked. Read it again. No reason listed, no details, just a quote from a source close to the deal saying there had been unexpected complications with core IP rights. Her stomach flipped like a poorly written SQL query. Her old company, the one that fed her to the wolves a month before their champagne-soaked payday. Buzz, her phone again. This time a text marked DevOps, they're losing their minds here. It's something to do with the original platform code. Call me. She stared at it. Heart racing. Original platform code? What the hell could, hey, real quick, if you're vibing with this story, and you're the kind of beautiful bastard who likes seeing corporate weasels get what's coming, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to claw my way to my first 10,000 subs, and your click might be the one that makes the algorithm actually notice me for once. Much love. She picked up the phone to call Mark, paused. Her thumb hovered over the screen. They fired her, humiliated her, let her twist in the wind while they polished their golden parachutes. And now something was wrong, very wrong. She didn't call him, not yet. Instead, she opened her terminal and dug up the old codebase she still had mirrored on a dusty external drive, back from the days before legal told everyone to scrub their backups. Her heartbeat synced to the blinking cursor. Her hands moved by muscle memory as she started scanning the code, layer by layer, line by line, like an archaeologist digging through the bones of a life she no longer had. Everything looked normal until it didn't. The comment, tucked into a block of core logic like a message in a bottle. / filed per Frank's advice, better safe than sorry Frank, her mentor. Her paranoid, brilliant, prematurely ousted mentor who used to warn her about paper tigers with golden fangs. She remembered him muttering once, "I'll never trust a company with a free snack bar and no ethics." A cold sweat prickled down her spine. She grabbed her phone again, but not to call Mark. She was going to check the patent database. She didn't know what she was looking for, but she had a gnawing, crawling feeling that it might be looking for her too. The letter came on a Tuesday, which already felt like a cosmic insult. Tuesdays were the emotional landfill of the week. Too far from Friday to hope, too far from Sunday to rest. It arrived via certified mail, hand-delivered by a postal worker who looked like he'd rather be delivering subpoenas to a nest of hornets. She signed, confused. The return address was embossed and terrifying: Mayers and Fontaine LLP, corporate litigation, and M and a strategy. It had the kind of weighty font that screamed money, power, and zero tolerance for typos. She opened it like she was defusing a bomb. Dear Miss Caldwell. It began as if they hadn't just reached into her life like a gloved hand into a garbage disposal. We represent the interests of Vortex Solutions, Inc., in regard to the pending acquisition of Zenith Works, Inc., your former employer. We are requesting a meeting to discuss the ownership and transferability of patent US 8532 to 9910, which lists you as the sole primary inventor. She read it 3 times, once in disbelief, once in panic, and once in that peculiar slow-motion terror usually reserved for watching a latte fall screen first onto your MacBook. She didn't have any patents. At least she didn't think she did. She dropped the letter, scrambled to her browser, and punched in the USPTO site like she was Googling a cheating ex. The search bar blinked. She entered the number, US 8532 to 9910, hit enter. The page loaded. Her internet stalled at 74% like it was gaslighting her. She slammed the desk. It refreshed. There it was. The title, Adaptive Load Distribution in Decentralized Modular Architectures. Her name, full name, Caldwell MR, as primary inventor. Her name, not the company's. Not shared with the CTO who once called her a support role with benefits. Not buried under a dozen co-authors who hadn't written a line of the foundational code but still demanded their names on every damn white paper. Just hers. She scrolled down, fingers shaking. Filing date 5 years ago. The year Frank got pushed out. The year she remembered him hounding her with weird forms and muttered warnings. "This is insurance," he had said. "You never insure your house after the fire. Do it now." At the time, she thought it was about bugs. Now she wondered if it was about bombs. She sat back in her chair, pulse jackhammering in her ears. She could still hear her ex-CEO's fake concerned voice saying, "This isn't personal, it's strategic realignment." Strategic my ass. They'd aligned her right into the unemployment line while popping champagne for a $500 million payday. And now that payday was circling the drain because of her. Woman eating cereal out of a mug with a $12 checking balance and an inbox full of "we've decided to go in another direction" rejection letters. She suddenly realized that all those panicked looks in her former colleague's eyes might not have been about the merger collapsing. They were about who collapsed it. She stared at the screen, trying to wrap her head around it. She had power, real power. The kind you don't apply for. The kind that doesn't show up in job listings with ping-pong tables and fast-paced culture. The kind that makes mergers collapse and lawyers send letters. Her cat jumped onto the desk, knocking over the Cheerios mug. She didn't even flinch, just kept staring at her name on the screen, like it belonged there. It started coming back like a fever dream soaked in fluorescent office lighting and stale coffee breath. The clack of keys echoing through a half-empty dev floor. Frank's lopsided gait and the way he always wore his ID badge clipped to his sock because badges are for cattle. And that day, when he barged into her cube waving a manila folder like it was a holy relic. "You're filing this," he'd said flatly, dropping it on her desk hard enough to slosh the Diet Dr. Pepper she'd been surviving on. She'd blinked at the paperwork. "This is the IP team's job. I already submitted the write-up to compliance." Frank just stared, the kind of stare that burned through walls and HR policies. "No, you're filing this under your name, primary inventor, no corporate co-authors, not even me." She laughed then, awkward and too loud. "Frank, I'm a mid-level developer. The company paid for the research sprint. This would be considered future leverage." He cut in, eyes flinty. "The vultures don't just eat your work. They wear your bones like trophies and call it team synergy." She remembered fidgeting with her lanyard. "Legal won't approve it. You know how they get about solo filings. That's why you'll file it personally, outside the company channels. Your name, your address. Trust me, they'll never notice until they need it." She remembered how absurd it sounded, like storing canned beans in the basement in case of nuclear fallout. Except, maybe Frank had been building a bomb shelter while everyone else was at the Friday bagel social. At the time, she agreed because she liked Frank, and because some quiet part of her wanted to believe she had ownership over something. Not stock options, not PTO days, not a plastic employee of the quarter trophy, but something that couldn't be deleted by a bad quarter and a new CEO with an ego the size of his Tesla. She'd forgotten all about it, buried under years of bug fixes and emotional gaslighting. But Frank hadn't. Frank saw this coming like a slow train through a foggy cornfield, and now she was standing on the tracks, holding the lever. The vultures he warned her about, they'd kicked him out under the guise of realignment. Then they came for her. Because loyalty in that place had the shelf life of dairy left in a conference room. She paced the living room, barefoot on hardwood worn raw from her restless loops. Her mind spun while her cat batted the mayor's and Fontaine envelope under the couch like it contained demons. She knew what came next. She needed Frank. Not just for answers, but because he was the only one who had ever told her the truth, even when it came wrapped in sardonic doom. And right now, she didn't need a pep talk. She needed a scalpel, or maybe a shovel. She yanked out her old personal laptop and pulled up the contact sheet he'd left in his final mass email, the one everyone else deleted unread. There it was. Frank D'Amico, former lead systems architect. Retired but not dead. If you're reading this, you either need something or owe me beer. Cell 317, 555 to 0192. She stared at the number for a full minute before typing a text with the precision of someone diffusing a warhead. "Hi Frank, it's Caldwell. Remember that patent you filed with me? I think the time bomb just went off. You still picking up this number?" She hit send, then turned off the screen, and waited for the ghost of her past to text her back from his bunker. Frank didn't text back. Frank called, at 1:43 a.m., while she was half asleep on the couch, mouth dry from too many Oreos and not enough water. The phone's vibration felt like a defibrillator against her ribs. She answered groggily. "Frank, what took you so long?" His voice was the same, gravel soaked in black coffee and contempt for authority. "I've been waiting 4 goddamn years for that letter to show up." She sat up straight. "You knew this would happen, I hoped. Hoped those Armani-clad morons would get cocky. And they did. Right on schedule, tell me. They fire you before or after announcing the merger?" 2 weeks before. Email, no reason, just gone." Frank chuckled, a humorless, gurgling sound. "They always clean house before the cameras show up, like scrubbing a crime scene with Febreze." She rubbed her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me what you did? Because if I'd told you, it wouldn't have worked. You're too decent. You'd have tried to warn them, or worse, sign it over like a good little employee. No offense, some taken." He ignored her. "That patent, your patent, is the load-bearing wall of their entire architecture. They gutted every legacy system and rebuilt the stack around it. I told you it was insurance. You just didn't know what you were insuring against." She could hear a lawn sprinkler in the background. Birds. Frank was in Florida. Of course he was. "Okay," she said slowly. "So what now?" "They'll probably try to renegotiate the rights. Offer a settlement. I mean, I could know." His voice was suddenly cold steel. "You don't negotiate, you dictate. I'm not built for this, Frank. I'm not you. Exactly, he said, you're better. They underestimated you because you're quiet, careful, smart. That's why you scare the hell out of them right now and don't even know it. She let the silence hang. Frank exhaled. All right, here's what you do. First, do not respond to anyone from Zenith Works. Not legal, not PR. Not that spineless CEO with the veneers. Every word you say without counsel is ammunition for them. I don't have counsel, she said. You do now? She heard shuffling papers, a drawer opening, a name scrawled like a threat. Ariel Chen, IP litigation. We called her the Barracuda back in my day. Looks like a Vogue editor, argues like a chainsaw. She eats NDAs for breakfast and drinks VC blood. I'll text you her number. Is she? Expensive. She's not free, but she loves contingency cases. Especially when there's blood in the water. And trust me, Caldwell, right now you're the blood and the shark at the same time. Her hand was sweating on the phone. Frank, what if I just walk away? I mean, I could sign it over, take a payout. They threw you out like garbage, girl, Frank snapped. After you built their cathedral with bare hands and broken sleep. They didn't even say your name. Now you want to sell them back your soul for a gift card and a LinkedIn endorsement? She swallowed hard. No, he said again, voice soft now. Don't be a victim, be a goddamn predator. Click, call ended. She stared at the phone, chest tight. Moments later, his text popped up. Ariel the Barracuda Chen, 212, 555 to 0175, tell her Frank sent you. And that you're the nuke. She didn't even think. She dialed. A sleepy voice answered. Chen, hi, my name is Caldwell. I have a question about a patent I apparently own and a company that just offered me hush money for it. Pause. Then, a slow, wicked laugh. You've got my attention. Her phone rang at 8:12 a.m. sharp the next morning like it had been scheduled by some caffeinated assistant with access to her darkest timeline. She didn't recognize the number, but she recognized the area code. San Francisco, corporate HQ, belly of the vulture. She let it ring twice, then picked up. Caldwell, hey, it's Trevor, that fake chummy voice, the verbal equivalent of stale cologne and expensive sneakers. Trevor Whitman, CEO of Zenith Works, king of the vision board, destroyer of pensions, the man who had said her name exactly once in 3 years, and it was probably to mispronounce it in a meeting she wasn't invited to. Trevor, she said flatly. Wow, you sound great, I mean. I know we haven't spoken in a bit, and hey, I really hated how things ended with your, departure, definitely not how I wanted it to go. But listen, that's water under the bridge, right? She didn't reply. He continued undeterred, that rehearsed ease of a man who's never faced consequences in his life. Anyway, funny thing, we were going through some old filing cabinets during the merger audit. You know how messy those can be. We noticed a tiny clerical hiccup related to one of the old patent attributions. You remember the adaptive load balancer stuff you helped with, right? She blinked, rage spiking behind her eyeballs. Helped with? She wrote every line of that damn logic while bleeding from a sinus infection and trying to keep her mother alive on speakerphone. Oh, that, she said. The one under my name? Exactly. No big deal. Just one of those things that slipped through the cracks. Honestly, it should have been a group filing. I mean, so many hands went into that soup, right? He chuckled like this was some adorable misunderstanding over a potluck recipe. She imagined putting a soup ladle through his teeth. Well, he continued, we'd like to tidy that up. We're prepared to offer you a generous severance package, retroactive, of course, and a formal apology. You know, clean it up for the merger. Get everyone what they deserve. She paused. Let the silence stretch out until it started to vibrate. Trevor, she said finally, voice ice-wrapped steel. This call is being recorded for legal documentation purposes. Do not contact me directly again. Wait, Caldwell, hang on, this call is over. My attorney will be in touch with her fee structure for any future communication. Good luck with the merger. I hear due diligence is a bitch. She hung up, hands trembling, not from fear but adrenaline. Power. The kind that didn't come from titles or bonuses, or having an assistant named Brielle to book your soul cycle classes. This was real. She texted Ariel, he called. Lowballed, tried to buy it with a severance check and a handshake. Ariel replied seconds later, good, let him sweat. Let him wonder. I'm filing a cease and desist and notifying Vortex Council you're open to independent licensing offers. We'll see how long it takes before the board starts eating itself. Caldwell smiled, the first real smile in weeks. Trevor had made his offer. She had made her move. Now it was their turn to dance. It started with the laptop. The clunky Lenovo she'd left in the office when security badge access evaporated along with her dignity. She hadn't thought twice about it, just one more possession she'd been too stunned to collect. But now, she got an email from Zenith Works IT titled Urgent, Account Security Review. The message was all corporate throat-clearing and veiled threats. As part of an internal compliance audit, we require access to any former employee devices that may contain proprietary materials, including but not limited to software artifacts, platform designs, and related source code. They were phishing, and they were panicking. 2 hours later, FedEx dropped off a thick envelope from Zenith HR, stamped confidential. Inside was a beautifully worded hostage note masquerading as a cease and desist. They accused her of misappropriating internal tools, claimed her possession of certain development artifacts could constitute a violation of the Employee IP Agreement, Section 5(b). They were trying to bluff with a pair of twos. Ariel snorted when she read it. Standard scare tactic, she said. They're trying to rattle you. If they really thought you stole something, this would have come from outside counsel, not Rhonda from HR with her Microsoft Word watermark. Then came the phone call. It was Samir, a back-end dev she used to pair with on long nights full of Red Bull and existential dread. Sweet guy, nervous, terrible liar, hey, Caldwell, so I was asked to check in. Just catching up, wanted to see how you're doing. She closed her eyes, they put you up to this. What? No, I mean well, yes. Trevor kinda asked if someone with a personal connection could float the idea of maybe just resolving things quietly. She could hear the shame in his voice. He was being used. Just like she had been for years, they're scared, she said. He didn't respond. Tell Trevor he should have sent a lawyer instead of a guilt trip. And tell him next time he wants to manipulate someone, he can pick on someone who didn't write the system he now can't sell. She hung up. 5 minutes later, her phone lit up again, not a call. A text from Ariel. Update, Vortex legal team reached out privately. They want to schedule a direct licensing conversation with you, no Zenith in the room. Caldwell stared at the screen. That changed everything. Vortex, the company that was supposed to buy Zenith, now wanted to skip the middleman. They didn't care about her former employer anymore. They cared about the asset, and she was the asset. Ariel called moments later. Voice electric. This is a kingmaker moment. You're not a former employee anymore, Caldwell. You're a gatekeeper. What do? We keep quiet, we meet, we hear their number. Then we ask ourselves, how much do you want revenge and how much do you want power, because you're about to be offered both. Silence stretched across the line. Ariel spoke again. They're proposing a sit-down. Next Friday, you, me, Vortex General Counsel. No Zenith works, just the adults. Caldwell looked around her apartment. The same cracked coffee table. The same unpaid bills. The same dumb cat, now asleep on the Barracuda's envelope like it was a silk pillow. This was it. War had ended. Now came the reconstruction. And she was the one holding the blueprints. The conference room looked like every soulless war chamber she'd ever coded in, glass walls, sterile lighting, a sad carafe of stale coffee on a tray no one would touch. But the tension in the air wasn't fluorescent this time. It was blood in the water. She sat at the long table, flanked by Ariel Chen in a razor-sharp blazer that probably cost more than Caldwell's monthly rent. Across from them, Trevor Whitman, flanked by two men in suits so stiff they looked 3D printed. One was the in-house legal puppet. The other wore the kind of smirk that screamed billable hours. Trevor gave her a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Caldwell, great to see you. Glad we could all get in the same room like professionals. She said nothing. Just opened her leather folder and slid a pen neatly into place. He cleared his throat. Look, we all know there's been confusion, miscommunication. None of us want a legal mess. It's bad for optics, bad for morale, and frankly, bad for everyone's reputation. Ariel tilted her head. You mean your reputation? Trevor ignored her. Turned back to Caldwell with the kind of faux fatherly expression he used to wear when pretending to care about employee feedback. I remember when you first came on board. Smart, quiet, always the first one in and last one out. Hell, some of your commits saved that platform. She waited. Let him crawl through the script. We made mistakes. No one's denying that. But you have to admit, filing that patent without the company's knowledge, that was sneaky. We all slipped a little. We can fix it together. The lawyer to his right slid a document forward. We're offering a full retroactive bonus package, plus a signing incentive to assign the patent back to Zenith Works. We'd include a press statement crediting your contributions. And Trevor added quickly, we'd love to explore a new position for you. Consultant, flexible, well compensated, no hard feelings. She picked up the paper, flipped through the offer like it was a takeout menu, and set it down. I've written code at 2 a.m. while crying into a burrito because someone changed the sprint goal without telling me, she said. Calm, even. I worked through my mother's chemo treatments because your deadline couldn't move. I built your core framework while the rest of the team was arguing about Slack channel names. And when you were 15 days out from selling the company and cashing out, you sent me an email that said my services were no longer required. The silence hit like thunder. I gave you my mind, my health, my time, and you gave me a pink slip and an NDA threat. Trevor opened his mouth. She raised a hand to stop him. I don't want your apology. I don't want your bonus. I don't want your empty title. She stood, pulled a single sheet of paper from her folder, set it on the table in front of them. This is a notice of exclusive negotiation with Vortex Solutions. They're proceeding without you. I license the patent directly from me because I own it, and because they no longer need the dead weight that is Zenith Works. Trevor went pale. She leaned in just enough for him to smell her victory. Your merger's dead, your board is going to crucify you, and your shareholders, they'll eat what's left. She turned to Ariel. We're done here. They left the room to the sound of silence. Not angry shouting, not negotiation. Just the quiet collapse of a man who thought loyalty was a one-way street and finally learned what happens when the quiet ones keep receipts. Her new office was quiet. Not sterile. Not cold. Quiet. Thick glass, warm wood, actual air that didn't smell like toner or despair. A view of the bay that made even her cynicism sit down and shut up for a moment. The nameplate on the door read, M. Caldwell Strategic Consultant, IP and systems architecture, not associate. Not junior developer, not team lead with no team. Just her. Finally, the deal with Vortek closed 3 days ago. Final amount, undisclosed, not that it mattered. Let's just say she wouldn't be clipping coupons ever again. The number hit her bank account with the force of generational reset. They didn't just license the patent, they bought it outright. And her? Well, sort of. They offered a high-level advisory position with obscene flexibility, a signing bonus that would make a CFO weep, and a private Slack channel where no one said synergy or circle back. Ariel handled the contract like a surgeon. Frank sent one message when it cleared, told you, welcome to the food chain. Zenith Works, meanwhile, was bleeding out. News broke across all the tech sites. Acquisition deal dead amid IP scandal. Shareholder revolt looms after patent blunder. CEO's future unclear after core asset loss. Rumors swirled about boardroom infighting, emergency restructuring, and a class action suit spearheaded by one particularly enraged investor who'd been promised a 12x return. And then the voicemail came. She didn't answer the call. Of course she didn't, but Trevor left one anyway. 62 seconds of corporate groveling. She didn't even play it, just stared at the little blue bubble labeled voicemail as if it were radioactive. And she forwarded it to Frank with one line of text. Listen to this, we did it. He responded with a gif of a shark in sunglasses riding a jet ski. She smiled, then deleted the voicemail without hitting play. Some things didn't need to be heard to be understood. She knew what it said, please, justifications. Maybe some twisted guilt trip about how she'd torn it all down. Good, because that was the point. She walked to the window, watching the light change on the water. No dramatic music, no sudden rush of euphoria. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when the engine finally stops screaming and you realize you're not falling, you're flying. She didn't feel victorious. She felt free. Let the vultures choke on their golden bones. Let the lawsuits grind them down to dust. Let the system devour itself while she built something better, slower, smarter, meaner if it had to be. But it would be hers. She picked up her coffee. Real coffee, from beans that had a backstory, not a breakroom Keurig. And with that, she got to work. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.